That. Joining me now, Illinois Representative Mike Quigley, a Democratic member of the Intelligence Committee and a good friend to us here. Welcome back to the broadcast, sir. Your thoughts to what Jay Sekulow just had to say? Of course, he's the president's attorney. He's talking about this inquiry. What do you think about what he said?
First of all, the complaint is already corroborated by the call summary that the White House put out. We're talking about Trump appointees, too, who have been corroborating this. The Inspector General we spoke to for 4 hours, straight arrow as there is, talked about corroborating this, talked about multiple actions. And indeed, I think he's anxious to come back. We will be talking to him again next Friday in the Intel Committee to follow up. How exactly was this complaining witness report corroborated in the time he had?
Congressman, I'm curious, when you hear the likes of Jay Sekulow and others from the administration coming out, do you pay attention to what they say, or do you look at that as just expected pushback, trying to defend the president, and you just go head down and keep on doing what you got to do?
You know, I sometimes wonder if they believe it or if they're just doing their job. It's like some of my Republican colleagues. I know many of them are afraid of primaries because of Trump-based supporters, but I look back at how Speaker Ryan handled these things, and frankly, his lack of intestinal fortitude to come forward and say the things he said after he left. The majority of the Republicans who have spoken out about this president and the presidency have done so either on their way out or after the time that they have served.
Okay, so let's look ahead now. Your committee, as well as that of Oversight, Foreign Affairs, requesting depositions from 5 senior State Department officials. That would include Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as well. You want to do it over the next couple of weeks. What exactly are you looking for from these officials?
I want to know who played a role and what role did they play in this fiasco involving Ukraine. What don't we know as well? The fact of the matter is that there were multiple people who came forward to this complaining witness to talk about these issues. Who else is willing to talk about them? This is also a president who's rarely committed any one crime once. Will we be hearing from others about other instances and other crimes the president has been involved with?
Can I ask, do they have to testify? And if so, what happens if they refuse to be cooperative? Because we've seen others who in the past have not been cooperative with Congress, and nothing seems to have happened to them.
I don't expect cooperation. I expect the same sort of either obstruction or stonewalling. That's unfortunate. To the extent that we can, we'll have the witnesses who are willing to come forward testify. The rest of this, unfortunately, will be a continued court battle. I would like to think the courts recognize the urgency of these matters, given the Ukrainian issue, the fact that national security is involved, that the president muscled one of our allies and used the Department of Justice to aid in that obstruction.
Your committee is set to hold a closed-door hearing with Intel, and that would be with the Inspector General, Michael Atkinson. That's going to happen Friday. You said that you want to know more about who was in on this. What specifically do you want to hear from him?
How he corroborated the accusations that took place. Again, I said he was a straight arrow. He refused to talk about anything relating to this specific instance. When I asked him about corroboration, he told us about how he does it in general. He will have the opportunity, as much time as he needs, to detail exactly who he talked to, what they said, how he corroborated each instance and each allegation. We expect it to be extraordinarily detailed. I also believe it will bring forward other people who should come forward and testify before our committee and others.
Okay. Let's, in fact, play a little bit of the exchange that you had with Acting DNI Joseph McGuire during this week's hearing. Take a listen.
What is your understanding right now of what Mr. Giuliani's role is?
Mr. Congressman Quigley, I respectfully just refer to the White House to comment on the president's personal lawyer.
Obviously, Mr. Giuliani is playing this role. To your knowledge, does he have security clearance?
I don't know.
Were you aware of his role or understanding what his role was?
My only knowledge of what Mr. Giuliani does, I have to be honest with you, I get from TV and from the news media. I am not aware of what he does, in fact, for the president.
Joseph McGuire used the word during his hearing, unprecedented. When you hear his reaction to questioning about Rudy Giuliani and the details that he is clearly unaware of, at least by his testimony, which one would presume is truthful, what are your thoughts on that and on the role that Rudy Giuliani has played in general?
I'd like to know what role Rudy has played. It's frankly a little scary that he's probably dealing with classified information. And I refer to the head of our intelligence community and the fact that he was concerned about someone playing this role without clearance, and the fact that the person in charge of our intelligence community has no idea what Rudy is doing involving such serious allegations. Is he personally dealing? Is he a personal attorney? Is he working for the State Department somehow? Apparently not, given that what Rudy said about Mr. Pompeo being upset with him. Is he working for the political campaign? As a result, there is zero accountability and zero transparency. We have no idea what promises he might be making with Ukraine, and if it involves personal favors for the president, as seems obvious. Rudy, if it's all so transparent and you're the hero in all this, come testify before our committee.
What about other witnesses that you would like to call in front of the committee? Could we see Attorney General Barr? Could we see Secretary of State Pompeo in the witness chair? And if that's possible, when would that happen? Or, look, could they claim executive privilege at Trump's request?
I think they probably should be. Obviously, they should be there. I think they'll claim whatever privilege they can not to be there. Obviously, they played a big role. They're all listed prominently in the complaint and in the transcript that we received. This was push comes to shove. This is a president who has used privilege to the extent he possibly can to obstruct the investigation, but privilege does not protect criminal wrongdoing.
Let's take a listen to Speaker Pelosi, who discussed all the expectations in terms of the timing yesterday. Here she is.
This is not a cause for any joy that we have to go down this path. It's a difficult decision to make, but we have that obligation, because in the actions that were taken could undermine the Constitution and the oath we take to protect and defend, including the oath that the president takes.
So, Congressman, how long do you expect this investigation to last? And do you think there is a finite window of opportunity that will close? And if so, how concerned are you that the inquiry could be done more for expedience sake instead of having it completely a thorough examination?
Well, that's the same way I felt about the Mueller investigation. What I took at the end of the Mueller investigation is that, frankly, the special counsel was a little worn out. And the fact that he had wanted to interview the president and that it was vital, and the fact that he didn't, it gave me some indication he felt he was pressured for time and didn't get the job done. And I would also question whether he ever got to any of the issues relating to following the money. Same issues here. When the president obstructs and the White House stonewalls, it's going to be very difficult to meet these timelines. It will be on our courts to press this issue and recognize that however they feel about these issues, the American public has a right to know whether or not the United States muscled a foreign power to help himself and his political campaign.
You know, when you just said the word court, it reminded me of Brett Kavanaugh and how Mitch McConnell gave him just 1 week to do an investigation, and certainly there remain questions as to how thorough that one was. That said, is the timing of this political? Is there pressure to get this over to the Senate by a certain time?
I think there's a political pressure on the other side to delay and stonewall as long as possible. I think we felt like, having watched this take place with the special counsel, that if we don't have an urgency, that the White House will successfully push all this past any sort of election period. We're already pressing the statute of limitations issues, where if you believe the Justice Department and a seated president can't be indicted, a president could serve past the statute of limitations for the violations that the special counsel detailed. So certainly there is an urgency in time. I don't think it's an urgency for expediency. I think it's an urgency relating to wanting to get this done so that the president is this president is the cancer on our democracy.
Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated, sir.
Thank you.